I really recommend the ebook because A, it's less expensive, and B, you've got links that will take you to videos and to scientific articles and so forth. And anything that is in orange like this and underlined is a link. So you're welcome to have these, and I don't know if the organizers of the conference have, okay? But even if it's you, the best way is to go to the website and go to contact us, and then send me an email. We have information sheets in English and some in French. We have videos with explanatory text in all these languages, including Arabic. Although I've had some, well, it's true of all translations, but sometimes it's not quite right. But anyway, if anybody speaks Turkish, you can go there. All right. And we do lactation medicine training as well. Some people have come for months, some have come for only a few days, some come sometime in between. And we have blogs available on our website in English, French, Chinese, Vietnamese, and Italian. Okay, that's that. Okay, so there are three parts to this talk. One is the futility of going by the numbers. Two, the norms for the breastfed baby in the first few days. But basically it says, don't have norms. And then norms for the breastfed baby after the first few days. And again, the answer is, don't make up rules for breastfeeding. But I want to talk to you mostly about the futility, because if we do this whole talk, we'll be here till this evening, because it's a very long talk. And so I don't even want to start with it all, but let's talk about the numbers. So this is a quote from Lord Kelvin, who was a very important scientist in the 19th century, as you can see. And he said, if you can measure that of which you speak and can express it by a number, you know something of your subject. But if you cannot measure it, your knowledge is meager and unsatisfactory. And this is not completely wrong. But when we're talking about breastfeeding, it's something else. He discovered absolute zero. And now, that doesn't mean he discovered nothing. That means he discovered the lowest possible temperature, which is 274 degrees below zero, where all molecular movement stops. Very interesting. He did discover stuff, but not zero. All right. The problem is, if you don't measure the right thing, then you're getting no good information. And are we measuring the right thing? No. I think if you were here for the videos, you know that measuring does not work when we talk about breastfeeding. Sure, if a baby drinks like this, pause, 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 for 12 minutes, he gets a certain amount of milk. If he does pause, 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 for 30 minutes, he gets more milk. But if he's doing nibble, nibble, nibble for 30 minutes, he essentially got nothing. So the numbers are not right when we talk about feed the baby every 4 hours, or every 3 hours, or 20 minutes on each side, or 15 minutes on each side. This is just thinking without understanding. No. Understanding? No. Something else. Something, you know what I mean. And it's not science if you don't measure the right things. We like to think that we're scientific. But if you're making numbers like every 4 hours and this sort of thing, we sometimes think, oh, we're so scientific. No, we're not. It's garbage. So if it's not science, if you don't measure the right thing, it's myth. And myths in breastfeeding abound. Even some of the questions that were asked today. I know you're listening. I'm not saying you didn't learn, but I think the questions that come up tell us that we still have to have rules, and the answer is we don't have to have rules, and rules are bad. Basically, because we take the bottle-fed, formula-fed baby as our model of normal. And if we do that, then we don't understand breastfeeding, and we undermine breastfeeding for the mothers and their babies. The breastfeeding is the model of normal. The trouble is, we haven't yet learned enough about breastfeeding. And so we get all these mothers who are saying this and that, and they told me 10 minutes on each side, or they told me 20 minutes on each side, or they told me this. And not surprisingly, the mothers are confused. How can it be right 10 minutes on each side in the hospital, but now it's 20 minutes on each side, or vice versa, or whatever? Even Lord Kelvin, the great scientist, got it wrong. He wanted to estimate the age of the Earth. So he said that the Earth was completely molten when it was formed and has been cooling ever since, which is probably true. Iron, though, he said, is the predominant material of the Earth, and the rate at which a ball of molten iron cools can be measured. True. But this is so wrong. It's so wrong because the Earth is not pure iron. So how can you decide the age of the Earth from something that's not pure iron? That's his idea. And then you can say the ball the size of the Earth will give you the age of the Earth. Okay, he came up with the age of the Earth being 40 million years old, which is off the mark, because the geological, astronomic, and all the other scientific evidence places the age of the Earth at about 4.5 billion years old, not 40 million. So there are things that don't work for the first initial ideas. So he got it wrong. Only 4.1 billion years off the mark. Kelvin also got a lot of other things wrong, such as saying unequivocally that radium, discovered by Marie Curie, did not exist. And he also said that many other elements that we found in the meantime did not exist. And he said that there will never be an aircraft that's capable of getting off the ground. Got it wrong there. Okay, so we are often measuring wrong when we talk about breastfeeding. At least partially because, as I said earlier, we take the bottle-fed, formula-fed baby as our model of normal. And this leads us into making large errors. Don't forget that breastfed baby is the norm. So, a perfect example, I showed you this the video of the baby at the breast who is not gaining weight, 5.5-month-old. I'm not going to go through all this because you already know the story. But if you want to get it, all you have to do is click that video, that orange with the underline. Tell the organizers to pass around the videos. Because we have links for them. I know these are big videos, but we have links for them, and you can just send them off. There. Okay. So, that's our baby at 5.5 months. Look at his ribs. And that's the baby. Again, it almost looks like he has rickets. Or she actually, right? Remember? Okay. Not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. Now, there's a reference. You know, if you can't trust Albert Einstein, who can we trust, right? But has anybody read The Little Prince for your children? No? Nobody? Oh, it's a very nice little book. But anyhow, what he says there, certainly for those of us who understand life, figures are a matter of indifference. Teach your children young. Okay, and here's a psychological view. Imperfections in measurement. Ah, that's what I was talking about, right? Imperfections in measurement are always a problem. But they are a devastating problem only when we don't recognize them. And that's exactly what I was talking about this in the video. We're not understanding where the problem is. We don't even recognize that there is a problem. You ask our nurses in the postpartum area in Toronto, and they'll say, yes, feed every 3 hours. Yes, give a 10% weight loss really means something. Yes, all these myths. And they don't recognize that it's a problem. In fact, we believe in numbers as if they came down from heaven. They're not true. So 10% weight loss, feed every 2 or 3 hours, 20 minutes on each side. The baby should gain 30 grams per day. Feed the baby on one breast at a feeding. All these numbers are meaningless if you don't understand how breastfeeding works, if you don't understand how to know a baby's getting milk. So, here's a 13-month-old, and it's important to understand how to read the data. And what I mean by that is that so many studies are being done by people who don't know anything about breastfeeding. Unfortunately, in the breastfeeding world, There are people that deal with mothers, you know, here's how to latch on the baby, here's how to do this, here's how to do that. You're doing very well, you're doing not so well. These are me and you probably who are dealing with the mothers. But the people who publish studies never lay a hand on the mother, never help. They're just there and it's theoretical, it's epidemiological. Here is how to read the data wrong. This is my 13-month-old grandson. Well, he's actually 9 now. But I took this picture and I sent it around to my closest 50,000 friends. And I got back emails. Wow, your 13-month-old is so advanced. He only can stand on 1 foot, and that's amazing. And I said, well, not really. I just happened to snap the picture when he was falling over. So, here's an extreme case. We see this in North America. It's even worse in the United States, but here's typical. My son is 1 week old today. My son was on an IV in hospital due to low blood sugar. Now, we have a blog on our website that talks about low blood sugar, but I can't discuss it all here. They also introduced formula to sustain him until my milk came in and to be able to get him off the IV. I have been breastfeeding him the whole time as well. So we have you can get this blog if you have, if you have the video, if you have the PowerPoint, then you can click that, you get the blog on low blood sugar. But you can go directly to our website and get it as well. My routine is to feed him for 10 minutes each side. The lactation consultant said he is receiving 15 mils total of breast milk during my feeding time of 20 minutes. See how the numbers come in? Then I pump for 15 minutes with an electric pump. I get about 30 mils of breast milk. We mix the breast milk with formula to a total of 70 mils and bottle feed him. He latches well to both the bottle and the shield and has not experienced any nipple confusion. Oh no, a nipple shield. We are feeding him every 3 hours. This is like numbers are huge. I mean, this is like you can do algebra with these numbers. They told us to increase what he's eating by 10 mils a day. I am also using a breast shield due to fairly flat nipples. Fairly flat nipples require good help to latch the baby on. So this is the video I showed you of the baby at the breast in Slovakia. Okay? So let's look at these. My son was on IV in the hospital due to low blood sugar, etc., etc. Assuming the baby actually did need treatment, there's a lot of what I call hysteroglycemia out there around and too much treatment of it. He did not need formula. He was on IV. The mother said that she was breastfeeding the whole time, but if she was, there was no need for formula because breast milk is better for low blood sugar than formula. Unlike formula, which causes release of insulin from the baby's pancreas, breast milk doesn't do that. But of course, he has to get that milk. But was she really breastfeeding? Let's see if this works. I never know if it's going to work. So if the baby latches on there, then he gets no milk. If the baby latches on there, he gets milk. How the baby latches on is very, very important. This baby is only 10 hours old, I think. I mean, not the baby. The mother is only 10 hours postpartum. So, my routine is to feed him for 10 minutes on each side. Well, you know, it doesn't make sense. All right. If the baby is breastfeeding very well for 10 minutes, he may not take the other side. A baby who feeds very poorly may spend hours on the breast and still not get enough. If you eat a meal, this is something I have to talk to people about because they don't seem to grasp this. If you eat a meal in 1 hour, does that mean you ate more than if you ate the same meal for 20 minutes? How does that make sense? That, it's got to be how long you're at the breast, not you, but the baby's at the breast. How long does it have to be? Again, once you know about that pause, you know everything you need to know about breastfeeding. Secret, a baby is not necessarily getting milk just because the baby is latched on and making sucking motions in his mouth. This causes all sorts of misunderstandings by all sorts of health professionals. They think if the baby's latched on and sucking, he's getting milk. But you've seen the videos and you know that it's not true. A baby can spend hours on the breast just nibbling and he's not getting milk. The lactation consultant said he's receiving 15 mils total of breast milk. Test weights. Here we're trying to be scientific, yes? But we're not being scientific. For there are many problems with doing test weights, right? You weigh the baby before the feeding, you weigh the baby after the feeding. Why would that not work? We know from the 1950s. Remember? Some of you remember? No. Okay, I don't remember either. I'm not that. Okay, but we know from the 1950s that it's very important that a mother be relaxed when the baby is feeding. And this is what we see in the ideal case. Mothers are there, and they're relaxed, and they're feeling good. But when we do test weights, what are we doing then? We're putting the mother under stress. The mother is she's either going to, get enough milk to the baby, or she's not. And if I don't, then I'm not a good mother. They're not accurate because of that. Even if they are, they're limiting the feedings, in this case, to 10 minutes on each side. Why would they do that? That's not what we're saying to mothers to do, I don't think. How much breast milk is a baby supposed to get? We don't know. Just because a baby will take 30 mils, even 60 mils of formula on day 3, does that mean that's what he should be getting from the breast? No, we don't know. Nobody's ever looked at it very well. Breast milk is not formula, and this is something that the formula companies try to make you forget, and too many people actually believe it. How does this help the mother with breastfeeding anyhow to know how much the baby got from the breast? And does anybody ever watch the baby at the breast? And I can guarantee you that in most hospitals in the world, nobody watches the baby at the breast. This is not science, this is pseudoscience. Why does test weighing not mean anything? Well, we now know that the breastfed baby is getting less than we previously thought, much less than the formula-fed baby, especially in the first few days. We know that. That's pretty obvious. Whoa, what was that? The exclusively breastfed, well-gaining 5-month-old is getting only at most 10 to 15% more milk than the exclusively breastfed, well-gaining 1-month-old, even though the 5-month-old is twice as heavy. In other words, nobody knows what the baby's supposed to get. When we do test weights, we use the amounts that a formula-fed baby would be drinking, and this is not useful information. So here's these people in Australia have done many studies on how much a baby gets through the first 6 months after birth. And they come up with this information, but I actually don't believe that their explanation makes sense of why the baby doesn't get so much. Anyway, that's it, it's there. Then I pump for 15 minutes with electric pump. I get about 30 mils of breast milk. Now think about that. The baby with the test weights gets 15 mils, but she pumps and gets 30 mils. How can that be? So it seems that the mother gets more milk from pumping than the baby gets from the breast in less time after the baby's already fed at the breast, if we can believe the test weights. So what does it mean? Well, obviously the baby's not breastfeeding well, he's not latching on well. If he were latched on well, he would be able to get that milk. It's like, this is why a lot of mothers say, I can pump so much milk, but the baby's not gaining weight. It's because the baby is not latched on well, not stimulating the breast properly. How do people come up with ideas like this? I know it's spread all over the place, but it's really, when we start to think about breastfeeding, that we understand what's going wrong here. Why does the baby not get the milk there? Of course, nipple shield, well, that would be one answer. I don't think there's any question that nipple shields decrease the amount of milk a baby gets from the breast, and that's why we discourage them. But, they're given out like candy in Toronto and in North America in general. And what are we doing to actually fix the breastfeeding here? Well, obviously nothing. And based on the mother's email, we're actually making sure that breastfeeding will not work. Okay, we mix the breast milk with formula to a total of 70 mils and bottle feeding. Well, what would be a better way to supplement this baby if the baby really needed to be supplemented? Lactation aid at the breast. You know what I'm talking about, right? I showed you. Okay, good. The baby is still breastfeeding. Babies learn to breastfeed by breastfeeding. What a radical idea. But you know, it's true. Mothers learn to breastfeed by breastfeeding too. When we have mothers coming to our clinic where the baby is not getting a lot from the breast, we show them the lactation aid. Not all of them like it, but we show them the lactation aid, and all of a sudden, instead of drinking like this, the baby starts to do pause, pause, and finally the mother says, oh, that's what you mean by the pause. Now I know how to know the baby's getting milk. The baby won't refuse the breast. This is a big problem. There are people that say there's no such thing as nipple confusion. Well, it's true. It's not the baby that's confused. The baby knows what he wants. If a baby goes to the breast and doesn't get very much milk, and then gets a bottle with a bunch of milk, like, he doesn't have to be Einstein to figure it out. He knows, I'm hungry, give me milk. Oh, I don't get much from the breast, but I get lots from the bottle. Why should I breastfeed? And there's much more to breastfeeding than breast milk. And that's another link. Okay, so here is a baby on the breast with a lactation aid. And see, with the long tube like we used there, it's 91 centimeters long. Then the mother can put the bottle on the night table if she wants, or in between her breasts like that. Notice the asymmetric latch. Notice that the baby doesn't have the whole areola in its mouth. I don't think any baby could get that whole areola in his mouth. No, I think I'll skip that, the time is short. But anyhow, it's a video that works if you get the original there as well. He latches well to both the bottle and the shield and has not experienced any confusion. She's talking about nipple confusion there. That's really a sad comment. This would be funny if it weren't so sad. The baby takes two artificial nipples, the nipple shield and the bottle, and is not confused. Well, yes, babies are not confused. Somebody's confused, that's for sure. So latching onto a nipple shield is actually not latching on at all. The baby is not latched on. How can you say the baby is latched on if there's a nipple shield between the baby and the mother's breast? Might this be the reason that the mother can pump more in less time than the baby can seem to get from the breast? Sure, that would be a good explanation. The nipple shield decreases milk supply because the baby is not latched onto the breast.
Yes.
But at the same time, the baby depends on the milk ejection reflex in order to get milk. And what you see is this with nipple shields. We are feeding him every 3 hours. It makes no sense to feed the baby by the clock. I mean, how much should we need to talk about that? But this is still going on after all these years where we sort of turned around and said breastfeeding is important. Let's make sure that mothers can breastfeed. Mothers are still being told to feed babies by the clock. A baby who receives milk well from the breast will let the mother know when he's hungry and ready to feed again, especially if the mother and baby are in close contact, especially if skin-to-skin contact. So a baby who feeds poorly may not ask to get milk, especially in those first few days. They just may sleep. Not because they've had enough to eat, but because they didn't get enough to eat. And if they only get small bits, they tend to fall asleep, tend to not take milk. So, good, lots of skin-to-skin contact, very important. A baby is not necessarily getting milk just because he's latched on and making sucking movements. Again, people think, oh, he's on the breast, he's been sucking for 20 minutes, that's great, that's plenty, that's baby got a lot of milk. No. The mother will never learn to read her baby. Look, we are feeding him every 3 hours, not I am feeding him. Okay, they told us to increase what he's eating by 10 mils a day. This is so typical, so, you know, this is so far away from real breastfeeding that it's hard to understand what's going on here. They told us to increase what he's eating by 10 mils a day. Does this mean that at the end of 3 more weeks you'll be taking an extra 210 mils or a total of 280 mils per feeding? No, I don't think that's likely. So obviously not. But given the teaching that this mother has received with her detachment from the baby's cues, who knows what she would do? or does it mean increase 10 mils all day? Well, that doesn't make sense either. Is feeding infants that precise, regulated by these rules? 10 mils a day, 8 feeding, 1.25 mils feeding increase per feed. She'll need a tuberculin syringe in order to measure this amount. And then I'm just trying to point out how ridiculous all this is. I am also using a breast shield. She's got the whole paraphernalia. She's got a nipple shield, a breast shield, she's got a pump, she's got, I don't know what else. Oh yeah, me too. Okay, so there's no such thing as flat nipples. Mothers have normal nipples, with very few exceptions. I mean, there are exceptions. There are mothers who have bizarrely shaped nipples, but that doesn't necessarily mean the baby can't latch on. And I showed you the video of the baby who latched on to the inverted nipple. So, flat nipples, I don't know. The practical training of breastfeeding is very poor. In fact, it's often non-existent. Everybody's got their own story. Nipple shields are often started on day one. We had a mother who was still on the delivery table, never even tried the baby at the breast. Somebody came on and slapped the nipple shield on her. Mothers are told they might as well not even try to breastfeed if they have flat nipples. Mothers are told that the baby is well latched on even when the baby is not latched on at all. They just got the breast in their mouths. We live in a bottle feeding culture, and we assume that if the mother's nipples don't look like a bottle nipple, then the nipples are flat. Okay, because so many women get IV fluid during labor and birth, and even after, it is true that they get swollen nipples that look flat, and the baby has difficulty latching on. But that doesn't mean in a week that baby will not have an easy latch on. Unfortunately, this type of thinking is not rare. I call it mechanization, not medicalization of breastfeeding. It's become more and more of a problem of mothers abandoning breastfeeding. They wanted to breastfeed, but we made it impossible for them. How long will this mother that I've just been talking about, how long will she continue breastfeeding? A week more, a couple of weeks, and what will she say? We tried everything, but it didn't work out for us. I hear this all the time. In fact, we did everything to make sure it wouldn't work. Any mother that could succeed at breastfeeding after what she went through at a week is really a super mother, as far as super breastfeeder, let's call it. What did I do now? Broke it. Oops. Okay, so we talk about nipples being just like breast, right? So this is an old ad, but I like it because it says, the even flow nipple design, second only to one. Nature designed the perfect feeding system. See how they talk about it as if it were mechanical, and instead of saying beautiful breasts, beautiful nipples. So our designers model the even flow nipple after the best there is. Okay, now, I've seen 50,000 mothers in the clinic since 1984. That means more or less 100,000 nipples. I've never seen a mother that looks like this, not even once. So, what does it mean? Well, that's an old ad. Here's a new ad. Anybody have these depressions on their breasts? What is it? How is this most natural way to bottle feed? By the way, Adam is Medela, right? Okay. And this is interesting, up to 9 nipple holes, just like mom. Oh, that makes a difference. And there's our comma with that nipple. You know, look at how they lie. Comma, the health benefits will last a lifetime. So I wrote the company and I said, what do you mean? The bottle benefits will last a lifetime? Don't you mean breastfeeding the benefits? I said, yeah, that's what we meant. Yeah. In the following, a flat nipple. Actually, whoa, slow down. Okay, this baby is 3 or 4 days old. I was sent this by a lactation consultant. And she said the reason the baby's not latching on is because the nipple's flat. That's not flat. That's normal. It's perfectly normal. This is a very experienced lactation consultant who sent this to me, which makes me worry a lot. But The next day, the baby latched on without help. Why did the baby latch on at 4 days when he didn't latch on at 3 days? Because then the milk became more abundant, and the baby said, oh, okay, that's what it's all about. I'll take it. Oh, here. I think we must be out of battery here. Where's our... okay. Lactation consultant diagnosed slightly inverted right nipple. This is an inverted right nipple. Oh, my God. So the only hope I have for this lactation consultant is that she sent me the wrong photo, because this looks perfectly normal to me. I think we're out of, where's our man from the, okay, and aside, this baby was getting 70 mils of breast milk, or formula, or both, every 3 hours. Assuming the baby is getting 150 mils per kilo per day, very likely, as everything is done by the numbers, that means the baby was born about 3.7 kilos or slightly less. Why on earth did they do a blood sugar in the first place? The mother said that the baby was not premature and it's unlikely at the weight of 3.7 kilos. The mother did not say she was diabetic. There was absolutely no reason to do a blood sugar. And here is where the numbers come back in. This is from the United States, this mother who wrote me. And just to make sure that nobody gets sued, what do? They do a blood sugar on every baby. So what happens is one inappropriate test leads to a disaster. And that's exactly what happened here. If they had never done the blood sugar, the baby would be breastfeeding just fine. Thank you very much. We are enamored with numbers and the laboratory tests, but mistrust thinking. So here's a cartoon. Came from, I can't remember. We can't be absolutely certain until we run some tests, but your initial blood work indicates that you may have a large spear through your right shoulder. That's right. Don't do physical examination. Don't do history. Just do the test. So let's look at the numbers a little more. What do we learn when we weigh a baby on one scale and then the other? Okay, I went through this during the video clips. You understand. One baby gained 85 grams in 3 hours. Really? How did that happen? Maybe he was fed between the first weight and the second weight, or maybe he wasn't fed. Who knows? One baby who had always gained well, exclusively breastfeeding, was drinking well at the breast, but lost 170 grams from one day to the next, from the doctor's scale to our scale. Do we ever make mistakes? Sure we do. One baby lost 500 grams overnight. From the baby was born around 1800 hours, and the next weight was at 6 a.m., and they took the weight so obviously correct, which it wasn't correct at all. How can a baby lose 500 grams in 12 hours? Obviously a mistake was made, but no, they didn't think of that. All they thought, a baby lost 500 grams.
Breastfeeding.
Sorry?
They had a mistake with the breastfeeding.
Well, the baby just wasn't, actually the baby was doing fine, okay? And the problem here is that they were so sure that this was bad that they actually threatened the mother with calling the Child Protection Services unless she supplemented her baby. So she called me, I said, they're bluffing. I was bluffing. I'm not too sure they were bluffing. But I was bluffing. I said, it's going to be okay. Don't worry. Just feed the baby on demand. Don't worry about it. And by that evening, the baby happily gained some weight, even though it could still be a problem with the scales. Nevertheless, everybody was happy. A nurse weighed a baby at 3.67 kilos and wrote 3.27 kilos in the chart. We see this not infrequently. I told you, a few months ago, one baby gained a kilo in a week. Do we believe that? But they'll believe this, right? One baby weighed 2.58 kilos at birth, and 5 hours later weighed 3.1 kilos. Now, how did that happen? Obviously, something is wrong here. And nobody weighs babies every 5 hours. So what somebody said was, they moved them from the delivery room to postpartum. And 5 hours later, they weighed the baby again. Somebody probably stood there and said, this baby doesn't look so small. Let's weigh him again. And and that's what they got. What would have happened if the baby weighed 3.1 kilos at birth and 2.58 kilos the next day? It's 17% weight loss. Can you see the panic? The transfer to the NICU, the IV, the formula, the pediatric, what do we call it, septic workup. Why? Because of the weights. Scales can mislead. Here's a case study. Baby is 1 month old. She went to see her pediatrician who weighed the baby. The baby gained 240 grams in the past week. The pediatrician, this is from a lactation consultant, a friend of mine. The pediatrician convinced the mother that I, the lactation consultant, was wrong. That the baby indeed had reflux. Let me say something here. That exclusively breastfed babies only very rarely get reflux. Very unusual. And she had too much milk. That was the reason why the baby was pulling off the breast and crying. The pediatrician referred the mother to the hospital for an ultrasound to confirm the reflux. Let me tell you something about ultrasound. You put a baby flat on a table and do an ultrasound, every single baby will have reflux. Because it's normal for milk to go back into the esophagus. I mean, seriously? Anyway, today the mother went to see the pediatrician in order to discuss the results of the ultrasound. The baby was weighed and in the past 2 days was down 100 grams. Now the pediatrician panicked and according to the mother did blood work to make sure the baby was healthy. How do you do blood work to make sure that the baby was healthy? Here's another number that's wrong. The serum sodium in the first few days to a week after birth. This is nonsense. Nobody has ever done a study. You want to do a study? Look at your babies, the ones that are exclusively breastfeeding and doing well, and do a serum sodium one. Nobody knows what a normal sodium is in a 3-day-old baby who's breastfeeding well. Of course, these babies get less milk from the breast than we stuff them with formula. So maybe it's normal for the serum sodium to be 155 milliequivalents per liter. It might be normal. We don't know. Nobody's ever done it. Anyway, what blood work makes sure the baby is healthy? Oh man. You know what the problem in pediatrics is too often? Nobody actually looks at the baby. All they do is look at the tests. You know, I tell the students that come to our clinic, 90% of your physical examination is just looking at the baby. You know, is the baby a good color? Is he alert? Is he moving all his limbs? How does he look? Is he fine? That's 90%. You know, listening to the heart to make sure there's no heart murmur. Okay, that's icing on the cake. But that's it. You're looking at a baby, normal baby. Oh. What? How did this happen? Are we done? Go ahead. Yes, yes, okay. No, it's all right. No, can't unplug.
It's still down, it's doing something now. It's 100, it's okay.
No, this is works, this works.
It's okay, it's okay. It's finished loading.
Computers are funny. They have their own minds. Oh, we have to restart. It's also showing me connected.
It's not this one? It's this one. It's the one you just plugged in.
Yeah, it's charging anyway. Okay, where was I? Oh, that's the wrong one. It's maybe lost it. Okay. Okay. Okay, maybe. I think I'm running out of battery here. Okay, so this baby, back one. Okay, so what kind of blood work makes sure that the baby is healthy? Then he instructed me, now it's the mother talking, to weigh her before and after feedings and to express my milk and feed her only by bottle in order to find out whether my baby has difficulty getting the milk from the breast, or even though the milk is there, or whether she requires supplementation because the milk is not there. This is absurd. And to have a baby, a mother, express her milk to find out how much the baby gets from the breast makes no sense at all. Because as the first case showed, the baby is not necessarily getting the milk that's there. And it's important to fix the problem. The problem usually that the baby's not getting the milk because the baby's not latching on well. 5?
No, I
Oh.
don't. This is better for me as lactation consultant because the mother do another thing. She gave the formula after finishing to know how much the baby needs.
Oh, and that also
So
doesn't
this
tell
is
you.
more reasonable for me than formula by to know.
Absolutely. And again, you need to watch the baby at the breast. Express my milk and find out whether the baby, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so my comment, what a mother can pump, tells us nothing about what the baby, what she's producing, or what the baby is getting from the breast. We have to stop thinking about breastfeeding as bottle feeding. So this baby, I don't know what it's like here. I can tell you that in Toronto, to send the mother, first of all, for the ultrasound, can take a long time. The blood work, also not usually done in the same laboratory. The mother is running around with the baby from radiology to one lab, to another lab. Anybody here who's had a baby recently, just consider what you're doing if you're doing these things. And it's not right, and it's not good for the mothers. And it's not good for the babies. So the mother is running around with the baby from lab to radiology to the pediatrician's office and is now scared that the baby is truly sick and all that for something that is easily seen when watching the babies at the breast. Pause, pause, pause. That's all there is to it. It's so simple. What else misleads? The serum sodium to diagnose dehydration. I've already mentioned this. There are several sources of error. Do we know that the normal serum sodium of the exclusively breastfed baby of 3 or 4 days receiving only small amounts of colostrum? No, we don't. Never, I just mentioned. Nobody knows what this means. Nobody knows because it's never been done. So here's a very simple test for you. A very simple study for you. First of all, look, of course, only at mothers who don't have an IV. Is that a possibility here? Okay, so look at all the mothers who do not have an IV, and maybe at day 3, do a serum sodium on each one of those babies. And let's find out what a normal serum sodium is in a baby whose mother did not receive IV fluid and is breastfeeding well or not well. Let's see. What is the effect of the mother receiving large amounts of IV fluid during labor and birth? So it could actually lower the serum sodium. Would the serum sodium vary from day to day as healthy as the baby gets more milk on day 4 or 5? Yes, of course. It varies. So here's typical. This is the La Leche grandmother's nightmare. So this is a La Leche League grandmother about her own daughter. My daughter gave birth 17 days ago to a small 5 pounds, 12 ounces. I'm not too sure what that is in kilos, but it's not a lot. It's 5'8" is 2.5 kilos. Okay, so a little more than 2.5 kilos, maybe. Anyway, who appeared to be doing well at first. His latch was good. They always say that. But we do not frequently see mothers at our clinic whose babies are latching on well. Now, of course, we don't see all the babies. We see only the ones who are not doing well. And by day 5, he had regained 90 mils of the 180 mils he had lost. But we don't know. It's 2 different scales. By day 8, he had lost 30 mils, and my daughter was worried. The pediatric lactation consultant sent her home with instructions to nurse every 2 hours. perfect, right? If the baby's not getting much milk every 3 hours, the baby's not going necessarily to get more milk if she feeds every 2 hours. Again, the notion that just because the baby is latched on and sucking does not mean the baby is getting milk. Okay. He was very sleepy. Why are babies sleepy? Because they don't get milk from the breast. And not breastfeeding effectively. Now, again, the notion it's the baby that sucks milk out of the breast doesn't make sense. It's the mother who transfers the milk to the baby. By day 11, he was down 60 more grams, and the doctor put him on supplement by bottle, which is not likely to improve the situation. He takes about 45 to 60 mils per feeding. He was slightly jaundiced, but not alarmingly so. He is not terribly interested in the breast. And why would he be? Some babies are weighed with their diapers on. This baby's diaper weighs 175 grams. That really changes what you think. Here's a baby, I've shown you these, so I won't belabor you with this again. Okay, so the tyranny of the scale. We see a baby girl, 3 days old, referred urgently because of excessive weight loss. The second baby first was breastfed with supplements for 3 months. The birth weight is 3.19 kilos. The weight at discharge, 3.054 kilos. I love the form. Do you know what that means? They're weighing the baby to the gram. And they believe that this is scientific because they weigh the baby to the gram. Why not weigh the baby to the 10th of a gram? Make it 3.0542. They think it's science. It's not science. It's ridiculous. Weight at the referring pediatrician's office is 2.99 kilos. And if you do the calculation, it's 7.3% below the birth weight. So he panics. Oh, the weight of a monarch butterfly, monarchs weigh less than 1 gram and vary from approximately 0.75 of a gram for large monarchs to smaller monarchs. In other words, what I'm trying to say here is imagine when you're talking about 1 gram, what this means. That is a monarch butterfly. You don't have them here. They're only in North America and Mexico. Okay. What does the native proceeding mean? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The pediatrician's office is 3 floors below our clinic at that time. 1 hour later, we see the baby. The weight on our scale, 2.91 kilos. Question, did this baby really lose 80 grams in 1 hour? It's not possible. So what did we do? We watched the baby at the breast. And the baby actually was drinking beautifully. Lots of pauses, lots of drinking. We helped the mother with the latching on of the baby because the mother was sore, and as a result, the mother had less pain. 1 week later, the baby weighed 3.29 kilos, or an increase of 380 grams. The baby breastfed beautifully and was obviously drinking lots of milk. That's what's important, not percent weight loss. That's me last week. What? Let's go back. Just to remind you of what it looks like. Okay, so just watching the baby drink. Look at him. Look at those pauses. Amazing.
You are the one who amazing, Dr. Jack. Since how long you are there?
That's when I was a high school student. Okay, so normally babies should gain only 200 grams a week. That's not really true, but anyway. So what should we suggest to the mother? Do not feed the baby more than every 4 hours. Give the baby water between feedings. Stop breastfeeding and give the baby formula because the baby will get too fat on breastfeeding. This happens now. All of the above. And I'm ashamed to say that in some physicians, some pediatricians in my area is exactly what they would tell me. How do we know that the weight gain was legitimate? because we observed the baby at the breast at the second visit as well. And the baby was drinking like crazy. And she came off the breast and she was satisfied. Incidentally, the mother no longer had sore nipples. Why? Because we fixed the latch. This email comes in when the baby's 7 days old. The mother is still supplementing. Within 36 hours of his birth, he had lost 9% of his weight, a fact which threw the nurses on the labor ward into a panicked flurry of activity. Within minutes of having weighed him, I was hooked up to a breast pump and being shown how to use feeding tubes and syringe to supplement my baby with formula. Okay, so again, some links for you. So by email, I suggest you follow our approach in this article on causes of not enough milk and how to deal with not enough milk. Email received 2 weeks later. Now, it's all done by email. We never saw them. Thank you once again for your help and advice. We have been following the steps in the protocol to manage breast milk intake and have had wonderful success. We are no longer supplementing and Matthias is gaining plenty of weight. So, is it likely that a mother who has enough milk at 3 weeks after birth, in spite of a very bad start, didn't have enough colostrum? Of course she did. Does it sound as if the mother got good help in the hospital? No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
What could have been done instead of a panic flurry of activity? Well, help with the latch. Make sure the baby is drinking. Use breast compressions if necessary. What might explain the weight loss even if the baby truly lost 9% of the birth weight? Exactly. That's right. Too much IV fluid, etc. Okay. And what would have happened to most mothers? Well, she might have just decided it's not worth the breastfeeding. I'm worried my baby is going to get sick. So, this is actually a very interesting name. This is her real name. Joy Noel, which of course means Christmas, and Weiss in German means white. So Joy White Christmas. It's a nice name. We emphasize weight measurements should only be a tool for assessment and not the basis for clinical decisions. A complete evaluation is needed and observations of neonatal behavior, frequency and amounts of output, and feeding behaviors should also contribute to breastfeeding assessments. Here, this article by, I think it's Celine Chanty. What did they find? A higher rate of weight loss of greater than 10% was significantly related to maternal intrapartum fluid balance. That's just a silly way of saying more fluid, more weight loss. Typically, loss of weight equal to or greater than 10% of the birth weight in the first few days suggests dehydration and need to consider supplementation. Okay, consider is at least the right word because we want to make it, find a way to make sure that that baby doesn't lose more weight. But the answer is not, supplementation, because they make it sound as if supplementation is necessary. In fact, what is necessary is to help the mother and the baby breastfeed well, and only if breastfeeding is not going well, then consider supplementation. And in most hospitals, at least in North America, 10% weight loss is automatic supplementation and automatically with a bottle. Whoa, again. On the one hand, we are saying that the baby is overhydrated at birth because the mother received large amounts of IV fluid during labor and birth. We acknowledge that the baby starts passing a lot of urine, and what does that mean when we're talking about urine output? If the baby's passing a lot of urine, we say, oh, the baby's fine, don't worry. But it doesn't mean that at all. It could mean just that I got a lot of fluid and I'm now getting rid of that. But then we make the jump that he's dehydrated when in fact he's getting back to normal hydration. And the usual result, supplementation, almost always by bottle. Here is a 6-month-old exclusively breastfeeding, except that she was given formula in hospital for 10% weight loss. Anybody think this baby is too skinny? Here's a 5-month-old exclusively breastfeeding, except formula was given in the hospital because the baby was not latching on. But since the hospital, the baby is exclusively breastfeeding. I can't remember why he was there. Here's a first photo of a baby swollen from IV fluids. Okay? He's in an incubator. What he's doing there, I'm not too sure, because he didn't need to be in the incubator. But there he is at 10 days, or 9 days, and you can see the difference in his face, no longer swollen. So again, mother swollen, baby can't latch on, we have trouble. And in fact, that's why we saw him. He was 9 days old, not latching on. Email from a mother of a 17-week-old baby, mostly bottle feeding. He would occasionally take the breast a little, but baby was getting only breast milk and gaining weight well. Think I got off to a bad start. A nurse told me my baby was losing too much weight, not even 10% of her birth weight in hindsight, and told me to get pumping. I have been worried ever since, and I think that this is very important. She's been worried ever since. Her baby is fine as far as, weight gain and everything else, but she's worried because they worried her. This is what we are doing to mothers with our emphasis on numbers instead of helping with breastfeeding. We see a baby at our clinic on day 18. Mother comes for sore nipples. The mother is not concerned about the baby getting enough milk as she breastfed 7 previous babies for a year without any problems. The birth weight is 3.75 kilos. We see, the discharge on day 3 with only 5% weight loss. Weight at our clinic on day 18, 3.33 kilos. In other words, what's going on in those first few days does not reflect what's going on later. And much more important than the weight, the baby was fed very poorly at the breast, was getting hardly any milk. It's possible. It's possible. Or again, percent weight loss doesn't tell you very much. From the discharge summary, I really like this, I have to say. This is from the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, where the only thing they know about breastfeeding is, I forgot what they know. Anyway. A baby has trisomy 21 and congenital heart disease. And this is from the discharge summary. Ad-lib demand feeding, maximum time 20 minutes with top-up of 78 mils of fortified breast milk at each feeding by nasogastric tube. With the breast milk fortified to 30 calories per ounce. 20 minutes is ad-lib, right? It's not ad-lib. If the baby's hungry, feed the baby. It doesn't matter what time it is. What is this? Why a maximum of 20 minutes? That's also not ad-lib. Breastfeeding is tiring. Oh yeah, I forgot. Right? If you keep the baby on the breast, he's got heart disease. You keep him on the breast too long, he'll tire out, and blah, blah, blah. And then they go to 78 mils. Like it's science, right? Not 75, not 80, just 78. As milk varies in fat content during a feeding, how do we know to fortify the milk to 30 calories per ounce? That's 105 calories per 100 mils. How can you do that if you don't know how much fat is in that milk? It's impossible. Science, above all thinking. From an email, how are we doing for time?
We have about 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay, well, I'll finish a little bit of this and then we'll stop. Just so, I hope I'm getting this message across. Okay, I have a son now who's 3 days old. I was told in the hospital that I should spend 15 minutes on each breast with him. These are quotes directly from the email. Do I have to do this? What if he feeds 20 minutes contentedly on one side and doesn't want any milk? Yes, exactly. Should I pump the other side? Oh, now she's made breastfeeding complicated. Now I need a pump. I know when milk is coming in because I can feel the letdown and I know that he's drinking and I see the deep swallows. Hey, she knows without me telling her. She's doing fine. That's me now. She's doing fine, but because of this information, now breastfeeding has become complicated. She needs a pump. From another email, I am simply wondering about the average time spent per feeding. My daughter is now 5 weeks and has been feeding every 2 hours for only 5 to 7 minutes. Can she be getting enough in 5 minutes per feed? Is there something I can do to promote a longer feed? She wants the longer feeding. Yes, the baby doesn't want to. She wants, everybody else is contacting me and saying, how can I have fewer feedings? How can I have shorter feedings? The baby's on the breast for an hour. She wants a longer feed. She does not seem hungry after feeding. Good point. She has gained 1.3 kilos in 4 weeks, not bad. But she continues to want to feed every 2 hours, which is getting very exhausting for me. This is the problem. We tell mothers, why is she feeling exhausted? Those of you who succeeded very well in breastfeeding, does breastfeeding exhaust you? No, don't say yes. No, if you look at a mother who is breastfeeding well, she's relaxed. What the mothers tell me is tiring, breastfeeding's tiring. It's the only time of the day when I can sit down and nobody says, what are you doing? Nothing again. She's exhausted because she's looking at the clock. That's her problem. If she didn't have the clock, she wouldn't be exhausted at all. It's also possible, from what she said, that she is feeding the baby on one breast that only feeding, out-age feeding, and that's not a good idea. And leads frequently to late onset fetus consumption. Does attendance include questions?
That's what I was gonna ask you. Do you want to hear more, or do you want to play some
I mean,
questions?
yeah, what goes on from here really is, I talk about the growth charts and how they're not useful, is if we don't know how to use them properly. And I think there's a lot of people out there who do not know how to use the growth charts properly. Anyway,
Let's make an announcement. Do you want Dr. Beckman to continue, or do you want to place questions? Continue. Continue.
all right. Okay, I'm not gonna read this because this is weird, but I decided I probably shouldn't. But if you're interested in weird stuff. Okay, so here's the tyranny of documentation. Look at this is crazy. They make the mothers fill out these charts. So we have voiding, date, time, urine, stool, and comments. What am I gonna comment on? And feeding, time lapse. Actually, it should be time elapse. But anyhow, first breast, time start, left to right, time finish. Second breast, time start, left to right, time finish, total time and comments. See, they don't have to write these things down anymore. They have apps on their phones for this. And it's just as stupid on the phone as it is here. Look at this. When I first saw this chart, I thought the mother was taking the baby's blood pressure. And look at this mother, 4-week-old baby. She came in, look at the size of this file here. She came in with pages and pages and pages and stuff like this.
I feel sorry for the mothers. They
I do too.
trusting their doctors.
Yes, they should.
So the pediatricians, they are doing wrong things. This is
Of course.
So who is
We can ask the pediatricians here, how much did you learn about breastfeeding in your training? And the answer is
zero.
almost always 0. I mean, it's not their fault.
And still he is giving, because he doesn't know, he would give different messages and bad messages.
I agree. And look. And what does it tell us? Nothing. All of which deflects us from the real issues. The baby breastfeeding or not. That's all that matters. Watch the baby at the breast and you know what's going on. It's so simple. And yet we make mothers fill in charts like that. Worries the mother without reassuring her? You bet it does. Protects the hospital and its staff? No, you can just see somebody in court. Dr. Newman, did you think this baby got dehydrated because the baby spent only 3 minutes on the breast on the second day between 9 and 10? Yeah, guilty. It's not my fault. Because who's going to read that stuff? What's the point of filling in charts like that if nobody reads them? Even if they read them, what's the point? All right. Is it easy to measure a baby's length? Who measures baby's length here? Anybody? Yeah? Okay. I mean, is it accurate? How much do you stretch the baby? Hey, the parents are very proud if their baby's tall, right? And you pull that baby's leg until he dislocates his hip, and he'll be taller. How about head circumference? Can you do it 5 times and get 5 different answers? Sure. How about testicular volume? Okay, you don't do this. But, like when we were residents in pediatrics and we were doing endocrinology, and all these 14-year-old boys that were this tall, we had to do an endocrine workup to find out why. And the pediatricians, the endocrinologists in the hospital, they were running around with beads around their neck. Blue ones, of course. And, so we had to be there and 3. Those are 2 milliliters testicles. Okay, so he's pre-pubertal. Sorry. Okay, and now exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months. Don't get me wrong here, because I believe that this is a good policy, but it's a public health policy, and it doesn't always, it doesn't always fit every single baby. So exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months, but that doesn't mean 182.5 days, because if the baby was born at 2 in the afternoon, you wake him up at 2 in the morning and say, time to start solids. No, it's not that. It's a public health statement, and it doesn't mean no solids between 6 months. And it's one of the things I posted on Facebook a couple of days ago, that if a baby is, say, 4 months and 5 months old, and things are not going well, and you've tried to do everything to fix the breastfeeding and it's not working, then instead of supplementing with formula, give the baby food. What's wrong with that?
We do that. We do that.
I know you do it because you have common sense, but you should have seen all the comments about what about the gut, the baby's gut flora. What are you talking about? You're giving baby formula and you're worried about the gut flora? I mean, be serious, okay? All right. What do we do for the late onset weight gain that we see so often? We see every day, we see 1 or 2. Add formula by bottle, the baby stops breastfeeding. That's for sure. If the milk supply is down, you can bet that baby gets bottles for more than a few days. That's the end of it. Breastfeeding plus formula is not exclusive breastfeeding, but it gives you, this is the message that mothers are getting. Formula is almost like breastfeeding, breast milk. So feed the baby formula, you're still exclusively breastfeeding. I don't know what message they're getting. 2 minutes? Okay, well then let's stop. So we have 2 minutes for questions.
If they want.
Sure, go for 2 minutes. Okay. There's one up there, okay. So the final message is, understand the norms for the exclusively breastfed baby, not just look at the numbers. Sorry, go ahead.
Actually, I just wanted to ask, when can we introduce the solid if the baby is not feeding very well instead of the formula? At
Well,
what age exactly?
okay, but first of all, no, there's no age exactly. That's part of the message. Okay, no, okay. The thing is that, it's always preferable, if it's appropriate, to supplement with food than with formula. So when is that possible? Well, if you look at Europe, you don't have to look at other places. In Europe, they say start solids at 4 to 6 months. It doesn't have to be 4 months. It doesn't have to be 6 months, but it's 4 to 6 months. So if you can do it in Europe, you can do it in Toronto, you can do it in Saudi Arabia, you can do it in Kuwait. But that implies first, help the mother and the baby with the breastfeeding. Don't jump automatically to the solid or the formula or anything. Make sure that you've done everything to make sure that the baby gets the most milk possible from the breast. Okay? Then, if that's not working, then add solids if the baby is 4 months old. But we've done it and suggested it to mothers who are 3.5 months, babies are 3.5 months. Just because their babies are starting to refuse the breast.
We have a progress and sometimes in the baby.
Doctor, I want to ask about your experience, because since you tell we are facing it, that pediatrician is tell some things and we tell the other. Pediatrician usually takes the weight and tell this must be added artificial, and we are fighting for breastfeeding.
Yeah.
It's a big dilemma. How we will make?
Well, I think that many mothers will listen to common sense. And I think that, you can talk about, your formula. Well, okay, first of all, there are many things that we can do to help you. Okay? We talked about it, improve the latch, okay? I don't want to go through it again. But, okay, if that doesn't work, then we can supplement the baby at the breast. Because breastfeeding still is important. And if the baby, say, is 4 months old, and you've done all that, and the baby's still not gaining weight, well, then okay. Then here's, food. Have cereals are not good food.
Yeah.
This is another example of marketing.
They put it with the formula.
Oh, yeah, so they make it, that's right. They put it with the formula, although we don't have that in our,
Here they are using.
yeah. What can I say? There are ways of getting around it. Yes?
Yes, we have a problem in the baby when there is increase in the weight. If we are following the baby exclusive breastfeeding and crossing centiles and become
Which way?
obese.
Up?
Up,
Yeah.
yes, up. Some pediatricians now say that if the baby is increasing much with breastfeeding, maybe 1 kilo per month, so start solid food early.
No, I don't
There
think
is
that's.
reference for that?
No, there's no reference. It's just that doctors don't like things. Look, you know, what we know about the baby who is gaining weight very well, or more than the average,
More.
is that they tend to slim down as they
Yes,
get
I
older,
know.
automatically. We don't have to limit their food, or we don't have to limit their breastfeeding, and we don't have to add solid food. Let the baby do what the baby does. Babies do what they want to because I'm hungry, give me more food, that's all. You know, it's not anything to do with how much fat there is in the milk or this sort of thing. Maybe there's more fat in the milk, they gain more quickly. Okay, they'll stop eating when they've had enough.
Sometimes ask the mother to give the baby the 4 milk only, 5 minutes from here and 5 minutes something.
Better not to worry about it in the first place.
Yes, and I'm not worried about it. This happened from pediatrician.
Um,
You know, not all every baby go to the lactation consultant, and not every pediatrician
understand.
lactation consultant.
Yeah.
We manage the case, and then the baby go to the pediatrician for vaccination or for another ill, and so ask them to supplement and do something.
We're gonna take one last question, Dr. Wynn.
Well, it's not a question, just a comment about the point of exclusive breastfeeding and should be 6 months. And it's a recommendation from WHO, which we are following according to the global strategy since 2002. So it's still there, and they are stressing on the 6 months. Your point of looking at the case, every case as individual case.
Yes,
So please, don't, for everybody, don't make it as a recommendation for everybody.
no,
And don't try to just spread the word that Dr. Jack Newman had said this, so we have to just follow it.
no.
Please, just, yeah. Can you please elaborate on this more?
Well, no, I
Because
mean, these cases that
to
I'm
avoid the
talking about,
confusion, yeah.
yeah, these cases I'm talking about is where the baby is not gaining weight well or well enough, where there's a real problem. I'm not talking about the baby who's doing very fine. The baby can start solids when the baby is ready. If the baby is 5 months and 3 weeks, and the baby is grabbing at the food from the mother's plate, that's fine as far as I'm concerned. But it's a public health statement, and we all agree with it. But there are situations, I don't see mothers and babies who are breastfeeding beautifully at 6 months and are breastfeeding exclusively. This is the problem. This is a way of getting around, well, just give your baby formula, it'll be all right. It's not. It's a way of finding a middle ground that will help to maintain the breastfeeding, but not result in the baby refusing the breast. And I think we all know babies, just give the baby a bottle in the evening, he'll sleep more, and then the baby stops breastfeeding. So we have to prevent that. And I'm not saying don't, get rid of 6 months exclusive breastfeeding. That's not at all what I was saying.
I'd like to thank Dr. Jack Newman for covering a lot of our concerns as breastfeeding counselors and lactation consultants. Thank you for your patience. The next session is going to be poor weight gain. So it
What
starts at 5. So you have 10 minutes. I want to give you your 10 minutes this time. I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Please don't forget to pick up your certificates at the end of the hallway to your right side. If you are not registered for the poor weight gain, we have an open session for mothers in the next hall, which you can join. We're very happy to have you there. Open session? Yes. The conference? I think it's full, but you can go check out the registration counter.
Yes.